This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity. This is Synchronicity.
Welcome to episode 21 of Synchronicity. My guest today is Ben Kovacs, and welcome. Since if you're getting these in real time, i.e. the day they are released, this is the second podcast in 2 days. I'm on a tear here. The one yesterday was with Danny Goldberg. It was the second podcast I had done with him because the first one cut off about 45 minutes in. So we did that one. It was politically based. And today I have a friend, and just who I'm going to call an actualizer-extraordinaire, Ben Kovacs, traditional, good old-fashioned Renaissance man, does a ton of stuff, and I'm going to tell you what that stuff is. But first, let me give you an update. So, if you're just tuning in, you haven't been listening for the past few episodes, or you're just hearing this for the first time, welcome to you. Welcome to you who've been here too. I obviously, I love you guys. I've been doing these book giveaway contests. So basically what I'm doing is books I've read, really particularly enjoy. I want to spread the love. So I want you guys to read them too, if you're interested. So I'm giving away brand new books, shipping them directly from Amazon to you. So I've been doing this. It's been going great. We have had 2 winners so far. We've had Adam, who won the first book, which was Mirror by Stars, Caravan of No Despair. And then we had Derek, who won the last book giveaway, which was The Supernatural by Whitley Strieber and Jeffrey Kripal. Still can't, I don't know. I'm gonna get his names. Next time I say it, I'm gonna know it correctly. Sorry, Jeffrey. And then this week, doing another one. And this book is one of my favorite books. Oh, I lied. I think there was another book giveaway I did. Phil Jackson's book, 11 Rings. I remember that because Phil Jackson actually mentioned the book I'm giving away this week in his book, 11 Rings. The name of the book is Tribal Leadership. What's the full name? Hold on, let me give you the full name. Tribal Leadership, Leveraging Natural Groups to Build a Thriving Organization. So, yeah, I don't know. It sounded really interesting. I've mentioned before, I've kind of stayed away actively from this tribal mentality, consciousness meme that's been permeating for the past 10 years. Seth Godin, I know, is a big proponent of it. I just haven't read his stuff, nothing against it. But I have this weird thing, maybe you're like this too, where if something's really popular, I kind of naturally rail against it. I'll tend to get into that thing later after it's not really that cool anymore or not as present in time. But that's just it's a quirk. What can you do? But this book, man, I gotta say, this tribal leadership book is one of the best books I've read in a while. It's nonfiction. Essentially, the authors, Dave Logan, John King, and Haley Fisher Wright, they interviewed and put together these massive databases based around kind of organizational culture and what led to successful organizations. And it's fascinating. It's totally fascinating. The gist of it is, just to give you a brief overview, so there's 5 stages that they've identified. And I think they actually interviewed Ken Wilber, who said, I think you should add 2 stages to incorporate higher consciousness, higher states of consciousness. So I'm going to investigate that because that sounds amazing. Plus, it's the number 7. That's a great number. But they've identified 5, and with 4 being the most stable type of organization. So I'm going to give you a brief rundown of what they are. Stage 1, the language that permeates from someone or a culture that's embedded in stage 1 is life sucks. So everything sucks, right? Life sucks. The fact of living sucks. And I love these tribal leadership things because I think they can also key in on mental states and individuals too, not just organizations and groups of individuals. So stage 2 moves from life sucks, goes to my life sucks. So you're at least open to the possibility of life not sucking. It's just yours does. You can see other people and their lives don't suck, but for whatever reason, yours does. So those 2 stages, pretty much you can imagine if a working environment, an organization is made up primarily of those types of people, probably not the best work environment. But the next stage, stage 3, and I don't want to get these percentages wrong, but I believe that they say over half, maybe 75% of all working environments are dominated by stage 3 cultures and personalities. So stage 3 is I'm great. Individuals walk around with the I'm great mentality, which is the implicit admission there is you're not. I'm great, you're not. And you can actually get really, really, really effective organizations, bottom line, and, effective in the sense of they can be functioning and working and seemingly working well. But it's a collection of individuals who I'm great, you're not. So this is often characterized by like the Office Space. The guy who played Lumbergh in Office Space is actually interviewed in the book, and he's a fascinating dude. I forget his name, but such a cool guy. And Lumberghs, right? The Lumberghs of the world, the Dilbert bosses, as they put in the book, people who really are managing you and they're great, or you're working with a coworker and they're great, and it's a competition, and that can actually encourage productivity. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Stage 4 is, like I said, the highest stage that they have for stability. So this is the we're great, and then the hidden they're not. So this is when teams galvanize and organizations galvanize around whatever it is, their mission, their cause. They're better than their competitors. They want to do this, they want to do that. So it's not the highest stage, right? And then stage 5, which they didn't find any examples that stabilized a stage 5 culture, in the working environment, but they saw companies and organizations move into this. And this is the life is great, kind of working for the higher cause, a noble cause, adhering to core values of the organization. Really, like, the people who work there, like, feel very, very, like, empowered and good, right? And they adhere to whatever those values are of the organization. Everyone kind of uses those as a reference point. So to me, this has been fascinating, because I think you can apply this, and I don't want to be too quick to do it, but you can apply that lens to lots of different areas of life, right? I mentioned mental states and individuals, but they don't have to be organizations. They don't have to be working environments. But this tribal mentality, which really does have some basis, it has basis in, how tribes formed in early, the starting parts of civilization for humans. So I just find it fascinating. Anyway, I'm sorry I digressed there. It's such a long digression. But I'm giving that book away, Tribal Leadership. So here's what you do to get the book. All you have to do, syncpodcast.com. That's SYNC podcast.com. There's a sign-up form, and you can join the Synchronicity community. And yes, you enter your email, but no, it's not just an email list. And I will be very specific when you sign up, before you sign up, exactly what you're signing up for. That's how you enter these giveaways, though. If you're on that list, it's a random drawing. Every week I'm going to do this, and you can get that book. If you don't get the book, I really still encourage you picking up a copy if it sounded interesting, because I thought it was great. Okay. Shifting gears back to Ben. So Ben, what an interesting guy. I mentioned that he was a Renaissance man. He is. So here's some stuff that Ben does. He just founded a gym called Guardian Gym, which is a mixed martial arts, and I think it's jiu-jitsu and martial arts studio in the Oakland area. And it's a little bit different than regular gyms where you're going to go and you're going to pay tons of money, and, maybe not go once in a while, or you're going to go like however you are in your relationship to the gym. I don't know. But this gym, Guardian Gym, the premise behind it is he's really creating an institution in a population, in an area with a population that has at-risk youth. I don't love the term at-risk, but, if you've been around places where they're economically deprived, there's not a lot of, upward mobility, there's not a lot of opportunities, that's when people fall into some bad shit and things that can affect their life in a not great way. And I've known a lot of people, especially when I was living in New York, grew up in the South Bronx, grew up in areas that are just like, they're not doing great. However we think the rest of the world is and this country is doing, there's pockets all over the country, around the world, people are not doing great. So what Guardian Gym is doing, it's kind of like an extension of a Big Brother thing, but it's allowing kids and other people in the community to go and have a place and kind of learn about themselves, life, discipline, all the things that come along with martial arts. And you'll hear Ben talk about that in this episode right in the beginning. So I'm not going to give anything away, but it's just really a very, very awesome thing he's done. And he co-founded it with another friend he has who worked at Twitter. He works at Twitter, which is cool in and of itself. It's, despite being, it's one of my favorite social media platforms, but I find it to be so much more than that. It's probably my favorite way to connect on the web, and that's evidenced by just people who've come on this podcast. I've met them directly through Twitter. I love it. And he also has a cannabis, marijuana, accessory, and lifestyle company called Meister. And interesting note about Meister, I'm actually going to have the other co-founder, Davis, who lives in the area I live in. I had him come by my house, and that's going to be a podcast coming up too. So you're going to get kind of a real Meister, expose. Is that the right word? I don't know. But yeah, so Ben though, so all of those things he does at the same time, but does not seem overwhelmed, which I love, because I'm a firm believer that you can do a lot of different things and you can do a lot of different things effectively, and doesn't have to make you crazy. And that is kind of a mindset shift, I think, for a lot of people. If you're doing a lot of things, back to the tribal leadership thing, that's actually a hallmark of a stage 3 mindset. Is if you don't have a lot of time, you're always feeling rushed, you don't have a ton of space, and that can extend down obviously into organizations or family life or whatever. But back to Ben. So here's some things we talk about. I'm going to run through them because I realize I yacked. I don't know how long it's been at this point, but you want to get to the episode, I'm sure. So here's what we talk about. We talk about the genesis and the mission behind Guardian Gym. We talk about the importance of martial arts, which admittedly, I don't do martial arts. It was very interesting for me to hear his perspective and what some of the practical benefits of martial arts could be. He talks about being humble and the relationship between that and developing confidence. He talks about having a purpose in life beyond making money, right? He lives in the Bay Area, and, a lot of people made a lot of money there and are making a lot of money there, and it doesn't necessarily translate to happiness or them feeling good. So that's interesting. He talked about working at Twitter. He talks about his personal relationship with marijuana, kind of the future of marijuana, the normalization of it. Then we get into a fascinating, I didn't know this, and I thought it was really interesting. We talk about microdosing because Ben microdoses LSD. I think he just recently started doing it. I don't know how consistently he's doing it, but he talks about what that experience has been like and kind of some of the benefits or just what it was like. So that I thought was very interesting. He talks about this yoga and marijuana scene that's developing on the West Coast, which listen, here's my deal with yoga and marijuana. I smoked once right before going to yoga like 10, 15 years ago, long time ago. And it was overwhelming. Every time I'd close my eyes and do an asana, I would see like swirling colors. Like it was like totally distracting from the actual process. So that was my particular, entry into yoga and marijuana, which I really haven't attempted since then because I didn't find it was productive. So it's interesting that has developed, that type of culture has developed on the West Coast. Of course it has, right? We talk about how to cultivate happiness, which is, come on, if you're going to be cultivating something, that's a good thing to be cultivating. And it's not like an allusion to weed. That's actual happiness. And he mentions at the end, I've been asking if you've been listening. I ask every guest at the end of each episode, what are some practical tips or tools that have helped them in their lives and on their paths, whatever it is. And he talks about, following your passion and doing what you love. And he says it much more eloquently, and I put him on the spot. I don't prep guests when I say that. But he did a great job of answering it. All in all, this was one of my favorite conversations I've had. It's very inspiring to see someone like Ben doing things that he's passionate about, making a difference out in the world, and maintaining, I gotta say, for everything he's doing, he's got a ton of equanimity there. Really balanced guy. It's obvious. You hear me when I talk, I get excited. I'm excitable. But Ben, in a good way, is very kind of medium, which I think is great. So yeah, that's it. Subscribe to Synchronicity, of course, if you haven't done it and you like it. Don't subscribe if you don't like it, because that would be a bad decision. Don't forget to rate on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm getting about one or two reviews. Oh, and I love the reviews. I'm telling you, like the ratings, you give me 1 star, but a nice review means so much more to me. I'm getting about 1 or 2 a week, and I love them. I gotta say, I'm very, very appreciative, and I think I'm going to start mentioning the people, if they don't mind, their names, who have reviewed. I'm going to start that next week. But yeah, so I don't think I have anything else to say. This is pretty much it. Ben Kovacs is the guest, and here he is.
Yep.
How do you like San Francisco?
Well, I'm out in Oakland, so
Oh.
I come in the city to work and then I go back. So it's almost like Brooklyn and Manhattan type thing. So
Oh, cool.
they're close, but there's definitely like a different vibe between the two.
How do you like Oakland?
So I just love the whole area. The weather's amazing. That was one of my big problems with living back east is I just hated the weather so much, right? Like
It really does suck.
that January to May timeframe was just painful, right? And then all of a sudden you get through that and get a few nice months, and then you get to August and it's so hot you can't even go outside. So I don't know, I really wanted to get somewhere where I could have a lot more like indoor outdoor living
Yeah.
12 months of the year. So that's certainly done that, and I was really fortunate to get the job at Twitter, and I met all sorts of cool, interesting, fun people through this and started the gym because of it. And I've just been really fortunate. Like for 4.5 years, kind of a lot has happened.
Let's jump right in there. So I want to start with the gym, actually. I really want to start with Guardian Gym. We can get into your Twitter stuff, but tell me, what was the genesis for this? And I'm going to have an intro so people will have some idea of who you are, so there'll be background. But I would like to hear from your perspective, like why are you doing this? What's it about? Thoughts behind it, and how it got going.
Well, I mean, I think I'm very similar to a lot of people out there in the world that, when you're young, you think that making money and having a career and everything is super important. And if I just made more money, then my life would be complete. And I'm no different than that in a lot of ways. I always at the core, I guess, knew that wasn't true, but I still like craved it. Right. And it wasn't until I found some success and bought a couple of nice cars and houses and things like that I just quickly realized, and I was fortunate, I feel like I found that success far earlier than most of my friends, which, today I'm 34, and I think a lot of people are just getting into that, where they kind of screwed off early in life, and then they're like, oh, I need to be an adult and buy a house and have a kid and all this stuff. Whereas like I did a lot of this stuff early and realized that, and I was fortunate that I realized like, wow, like having that really nice car didn't actually make me happier. I think it actually made me sadder because I like had to put all this energy into dealing with it and thinking about it and parking it in the right spot, right?
More money, more problems.
Exactly. So I was fortunate, and I got into jiu-jitsu when I was 24 years old at the Yamasaki Academy in Rockville, Maryland.
Cool.
And it really changed my life. Like I found this thing that I was so passionate about, and it wasn't about winning tournaments and everything, but it was about the community that the school had, and it was about the training partners and going to dinner, lunch after class, watching the UFC fights together, even some people doing business deals and things together and hiring contractors from the school and things like that. And I just realized that like this is not a community that happens with basketball or baseball or football or so many other sports as consistently as it does in the martial arts community. And so I came out here and started doing jiu-jitsu at another school, and I realized that, wow, it's basically $200 a month after tax to train unlimited jiu-jitsu at a school in San Francisco.
Wow.
And, if you do the math on that, that means you got to make about $4,000 a year for an average person to pay your dues for the school every year. I mean, that is a tremendous amount of money to go roll around on a mat with sweaty men. And I know there's more to it than just rolling around on the mat, because you're paying for obviously the instruction and the insurance and the rent and everything else that a place provides.
Sure.
But I just thought, Joe Rogan had this really simple quote where he said, the world would be a better place if everyone did jiu-jitsu or everyone did martial arts. I forget which one he said. It's so simple, but it's so true, right? Like it's this one thing that creates a community. It lessens your ego. It Obviously keeps you in really good shape if you do it consistently. And I thought, like, why not give kids the chance to do this regardless of their financial situation and provide them a free way that they could train? Because gift has given so much to me. What better gift could I do to give back? And they always say, like, do something that you love for a job and it won't feel like work. Well, I think it's the same thing with volunteering. If you tell me to go pick up trash, I know that's good for the community for me to walk around and pick up trash, but that's going to bore the shit out of me and it's going to feel like work after 10 minutes. But I found this thing that I know gives back to the community now. It's also something I love. So it doesn't feel like this huge, painful endeavor to have to go to the gym every day and do it.
Right. So you fuse those two things. Well, there's a lot there. Talk about, I mean, what was it specifically about the martial arts? I'm going to just say from my perspective, I took a jujitsu class actually at, I think it was NIH. There was something, they had like a jujitsu thing when I was growing up and my friend wanted me to go. And I went and had the gi, had everything, and I was terrible. I was so terrible. I flipped one guy and I felt really proud, but I was like, I can't do this. I don't like it. I am not admittedly a huge martial arts person, but I get it. There's some aspect of the discipline as a spiritual pursuit, as a lot of things. Can you talk about what it is specifically that engaged you? And then I certainly want to get into kind of the service aspect of this, how you're helping communities and people, and the whole community thing is fucking awesome. But can you just talk about specifically about martial arts and what you think kind of the practical benefits are in your life, and then what you've seen in other people's?
I mean, there's so many ways I think you could go with this question, but the one thing that I find is that we're still wired, especially as men, that we are very unsure of ourselves, I think, a lot of times, and it creates this chest beating, puffing sort of complex where we always have to look like we're tougher than we are. We don't want to be embarrassed, and so we kind of, a lot of us walk around with this false sense of bravado, right? And I used to think that when I went to the bar or something when I was 21, I would be like, oh, I could probably, that guy, keeps stepping on my foot. Like I could probably beat that guy up, but
Yeah.
he's smaller than me, right? Or I look like I'm tougher than him. And then, what I realized when I started doing jujitsu as I got tapped out by, 16-year-old girls and 72-year-old men is I was like, I'm really not very tough, like I'm not a badass physically and by any stretch of the imagination. And yet at the same time, as I've kept going, I've built up this like quiet confidence, right? Where I never get in fights outside of the school, but yet at the same time, I'm really scared of like very little compared to what I used to be. So it's almost like this true confidence that carries with you, I think, through life. And it gives you this backstop of no matter how bad your day is going, you can go out in the mat and like put it all on there and you leave. And it's really hard to leave there in a bad mood or worried about that your presentation was late or that, you got a parking ticket or all the things that make people crazy. You kind of forget about it when you go on the mat. And, I think the second part of your question is kids, there's so many opportunities for a lot of kids in schools with therapists and with doctors and counselors, but they can't relate to so many of these kids. And you have to get them on the mat, kind of like how yoga was really invented to help people meditate, thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Yoga wasn't really invented to give girls in LA six-pack
Wait, no,
abs,
are you
although
sure
that's a
about
great,
that? Are you sure about that? I think
I mean,
it actually.
it's a great side effect of, the movement. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy with yoga and my girlfriend does it. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's the same with martial arts, right? It's, if we go wrestle with each other or punch each other in the face for a few rounds or whatever, we have a mutual level now of respect. And if you're a 14-year-old kid that can't connect with guidance counselors because, you live in a situation where they just wouldn't understand, it's a way to break down that barrier, right? And everyone is equal on the mat. And the guys that train at the school where I came from, there's kids that sleep on the mat who make $100 a month, and I don't even, quite frankly, understand how they support their dream to become the next world champion. And then there's one of the co-founders of Airbnb who was training at the school, who I think is worth $2.5 billion. Wow. And these are people on the same mat at the same time, doing the same thing, treated completely equally. And I think that's really interesting. If you remember growing up on the basketball court, what was the basketball court like? It was a bunch of people talking, I'm better than you, I'm better than you, pick me, like that guy doesn't pass enough. I call a foul, you call too many fouls. It's like this really weird thing, right? Like I played basketball my whole life, but it's far different. This is like the boxing ring is, they call it the ring of truth, right? Because you can't go in there and talk your way out of it. You got to go in there and actually box your way out of it. Or in a jiu-jitsu fight, it's the same thing, right? Like somebody's going to get choked out or get armbarred, and you can say you're the best and everything, but it ultimately comes out in that sport. And I think that's a big difference between jiu-jitsu, boxing, and something like a basketball.
Like a team, something like that. And it's something,
Yeah.
it seems like the one-to-one relationship too is something that kind of cultivates a mutual respect, which seems to be key. So like, what are some things you've noticed, like the impact it's had on people's lives who maybe otherwise wouldn't be able to go and do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been planning this gym for about 2 years. We just opened our doors 7 weeks ago. The first few weeks were pretty embarrassing in the sense that, we'd have one or two or three kids walking through the door. Now in our seventh week, we've started to have classes with 25 plus kids in a single class.
Awesome.
I got a text message from a student. I'll read it to you
Yes,
the other
yes.
day, which I think sums it up. This guy has been coming. He's 16 years old. He's been coming to our class now for a little over a month. Just a great kid, super nice. Definitely not in the best of shape, but he keeps showing up and putting in the work. He's not doing any other types of sports or programs. He said, "I wanted to talk with you about some problems I have at home, my house. My dad actually just left the house and left me, my sister, my brother, my mom, all together. Guardian has actually helped me a lot because I have a lot at home and school, but it's the only place I feel good. I want to be able to help my mom and my brother with stuff around the house, so I'm trying hard for a job or a paid internship. I don't know. If there's anything you could do to help me out to find a job or an internship, I'd really appreciate it." So, basically after just a month of training, this kid felt comfortable enough where he said, this is the place where I feel safest. It takes my mind off the problems at home. And now he's doing exactly what we expected kids to do, which is, how do we take this success that we're seeing on the mat and the community that we're building, and how do we help these kids while they're at such a vulnerable age get to the next step and say, hey, like, I want to get an internship, like I want to get a job. Like, these kids want to work when they're 15, 16, 17. They don't want to ask their mom for money anymore. They want to be productive members of society, but there's a disconnect. Like, they don't have a dad or a mom or an uncle that has a connection for an internship or can give them extra yard work at home to pay the bills. Like, a lot of these kids don't have anything. So it's either, get a job that really isn't going to advance their career in any way, kind of a dead end job where they're stuck maybe at, like, say, a fast food place or something like that. Or worse off, they, have no job, or they hit the streets to do something that's going to get them into a lot of trouble or danger. So I really think that this is such an important age to be hitting people. And we have so many problems in society, and we spend so much money rehabilitating people through drug programs and through jail programs and all these things that are the consequences of not paying attention to our 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. Why don't we spend a fraction of that money and a fraction of the resources and put it into helping these kids early to build that confidence and work before they get frustrated?
Wow. So it makes a tremendous amount of sense too. I mean, I am sure you see yourself maybe potentially setting up some platforms and things within Guardian Gym to help people like that specifically, because I think you'll probably, as time goes on, find more and more situations and texts like those. That's awesome. I mean, it's amazing. The name Guardian Gym, right? There, it clearly you're already serving as a safe space within 7 weeks of operation for someone. That's the biggest testament to the success. Whatever else you could tell me about numbers or anything else, that's fucking awesome, man. That's really, really, really cool.
Thank you.
All right. So I want you do a lot of different things. You have a day job at Twitter. You also, we have a mutual friend, your business partner, Davis. You have a company with him. Does he do Lifted too? Is he involved with Lifted? Yeah. So you have Meister and Lifted. So I want to get into that too, but I wanted to start at Twitter because that's your day job, so to speak. Can you tell me a little bit about how you decided to apply or start working for Twitter? Because I know you had your other companies at this point. And then a little bit, Twitter, FYI, is one of of all the social media platforms, by far my favorite. It's the one I gravitated to. Not the first, Facebook was. I was in Boston when it came out, but I love it. Something about the communication form itself. To me, it's digitized consciousness, and I think it's a fundamentally different way of communicating than a lot of the other platforms, and which is why I think you see a lot of the other platforms like Facebook copying the news feed and the timeline and all these things over time. So tell me a little bit about Twitter and how you got involved and what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I love Twitter. I mean, the way that I got here was kind of an accident. I was actually working for another company at the time, and I was on LinkedIn, and it said, I think I had smoked a joint, and I was just doing some late night work, and it said, "Do you want to work for Twitter? Click here." And I clicked there, and
And you
a
got the
couple days
job.
later, I got a call. Yeah, I got a call from a recruiter, and she was like, "Your resume didn't upload correctly, like when you." And I was like, "Pfft, "Yeah, it's really weird. Like I don't know why." And thinking in my head, like I didn't even upload a resume, right? I just clicked the button. But anyway, I went through the process. I was very honest with them up front. I said, "Hey, I also am involved in a marijuana accessories company called Meister." They thought that was cool and interesting, and I think my entire interview was talking about that instead of other experience. So that was cool. And so it kind of took away. A lot of people ask, "Well, how do you do these other ventures if you're doing
Mm,
Twitter?" And I say, "Well, I've told them before I even worked at Twitter what I was doing, and they hired me. So it'd be a little awkward for them to come back now and complain about it." But yeah, I mean, it's been an awesome place to work. I mean, Twitter as a company is great. Obviously, we have our public challenges and everything and growth, and everybody expects Twitter to be as big and powerful and have a market cap like Facebook, which
right.
just hasn't materialized. And I think part of that is for the reasons that, you say, like, Twitter's digitized consciousness in your mind, right? And it's a
Mm,
platform that you gravitate to. And I think part of what makes Twitter unique and cool is that, your grandma isn't on Twitter necessarily. And, you know, your mom may not even be on Twitter or whatever. It's kind of like the people who love it seem to just really love it and gravitate to it, but it's clearly not a platform for everyone. At least when you compare it to something like Facebook. So I kind of think that's like the strong suit of Twitter and what may actually allow Twitter to like outlast some of the other platforms that
sure.
come around that could be more fly by night platforms. So it's
And
just been an awesome ride.
no,
Yeah,
continue,
what were you gonna
continue.
say?
I was gonna say
I was
one.
gonna say,
I was gonna say this just about Twitter to say another thing I really love about it. The horizontal. I had a conversation with Kelly Carlin, George Carlin's daughter, a few episodes ago, and she brought up that in this day and age, it's so easy to use the horizontal. You can go across mediums really easily, but the vertical, the depth of subjects isn't as easily accessible. One of the things I particularly love about Twitter, though, is that horizontal capacity. I've made so many connections with people on Twitter. I mean, I was one of those people back when like AOL was going on. Like I'd meet real live people, not in a weird way, and like be like, these are my internet friends. And then we'd meet up in person, whether it was from a message board. Twitter to me is one of the coolest. Like here's my favorite Twitter thing. I have the company that this podcast is on is MindPod Network, and there's a lot of other cool teachers on it. People who listen to this podcast know what it is, but my favorite thing happened with the MindPod Network. One of our followers is Phil Jackson, and he follows like 60 people, and to me, that's the coolest fucking thing in the world, that there's someone like Phil Jackson who has tapped into something that's a very small part of Twitter, really not being promoted in any way, but he's tuned in consciousness wise and he's retweeting things here. Like that to me is incredible. And that alone, the serendipitous things that can take place on Twitter, put it in kind of a different spectrum than I think a lot of these other things that are out there. So yeah,
Mm.
continue. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm really glad that you're passionate about Twitter. I mean, I think Twitter's amazing, and I've only started reusing Facebook and some other things because of the gym,
Right.
because they're so powerful in the jiu-jitsu community, especially. And I'm like, man, like I need like a PhD to use this, right? And I put out something, and it's like you want to put money behind it, or nobody's going to see it. And I'm just like, this is terrible. Like Twitter, actually, from not just because I work here, but it's just such a better experience
Mm,
than some of these other platforms. And so I really agree with you. But I do sales here, so my job's pretty straightforward. I work with some of our largest advertisers in the country. I've worked with Bose and Beats by Dre and Comcast and Zillow and Mozilla Firefox and advertisers like that to help them with their paid ad strategy on the platform.
mm,
So
very
it's kind
cool.
of a part creative, part sales, part account management. A little bit of everything.
That's what you need to be on the web today, wherever you're working. I mean, come on, you got to be resourceful and have many talents. All right, I want to
Yeah.
focus on one of your projects, your businesses that I'm very much aligned with, which is Meister.
Mm.
And I heard you say in an interview, and like I said, we have mutual friend Davis, so I kind of know what it's about. But making marijuana culture or marijuana kind of an integrated part of the regular culture, because I'm a huge proponent of cannabis. I'm a daily marijuana smoker. I am also a successful professional. I do a lot of creative things. They're not mutually exclusive. We have more people in culture kind of being those people. So can you talk a little bit about the genesis of Meister and anything else related to that, marijuana in general?
Yeah, I mean, I'm I'm sort of like a halfway daily user, I guess you would say. Like I actually don't function that well when I use most types of marijuana. So I kind of know my own limitations, and I'm not somebody who rolls out of bed and grabs a bowl and
First thing, right?
hits it and then hits it again at lunch and hits it again after dinner. I mean, I'm more of like, I get through my day, I get the things done that I need to get done, and then maybe similarly to how an average person would drink wine, after work or after their workout or whatever it is, that's when I would typically enjoy cannabis. So Davis is the opposite, right? He's,
Yeah.
all day, every day, like that's just part of his life. And my thought is, it doesn't matter like how much you smoke weed or, you know, use cannabis. It doesn't matter. Like we all should be on the same team for legalization, right? This isn't something that whether you want to use it once a year, once a lifetime, once an hour, it should be a choice, right? Like this isn't something that the government should be regulating. In my opinion, this should be something that's left up to people to make their own decision on. So, I think what Meister's trying to do in a subtle way is rather than just, there's a lot of people that are out there beating the drum for legalization and going to rallies and stuff like that. But we think one of the best ways to change perception of the industry is of not just the industry, but of the plant is by building really high quality products that professionals, business people, lawyers, doctors, can put on their countertops, put on their tables, put on their bookshelves, take in their car, whatever it is, and be proud of, right? Like we always joke, like, you bring a girl home from a date and you open up a shoebox on your kitchen table and you start pulling out a bunch of like shake and, metal grinders that are in three pieces. And
You're
I don't know.
describing my wife's the bane of her existence, my box with all the stuff that is she's just constantly throwing stuff in there, and she's like, you need a new shoebox.
Yeah.
It's horrible. So yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it doesn't look pro, right? Like it's like not how we do anything else in our life. So why something that we know is as good for us as marijuana for so many of us? Why does that, like, why don't we have a better way to do that we're not embarrassed about? And just because it was illegal or just because our parents maybe frowned on it, depending on who your parents were, doesn't mean that I think it has to be like that forever. So I think Meister is doing its part in the movement by not just, donating money or doing, legalization marches and stuff like that, but it's actually building products that people can be proud of.
Which are very awesome. I can attest to that fact.
Thank you.
So you touched on something very, very critical, I think, in that, which is that you fundamentally believe it should be a choice, right? That this is a something that so let me ask you this. What about psychedelics? Psychedelics, do you believe that's also a choice? Are you a psychedelic user? What are your thoughts on psychedelics?
Absolutely think psychedelics should be a choice. I've experimented with a lot of different kinds, probably not as much as you, but I've tried some pretty powerful salvia. I've done mushrooms, a couple dozen times. I've started not that long ago, within the last year, microdosing LSD, and that's been one of my favorite things to do. I feel like that's been I don't do it like all the time, not because it's not an amazing experience every time, but just because I figure there's probably a good reason maybe not to do it every day and make it more of a special occasion. But that's been definitely like my new favorite go-to. So I guess I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I haven't done ayahuasca yet. I think that's probably at least the majority of my psychedelic experience.
So talk to me. I've microdosed psilocybin mushrooms, very small amounts. I did it for two different times, a few days in a row, and I was actually, I actually spoke to Dennis McKenna about this, Terrence's brother, and he was basically, I think he was being polite, but I don't think he fully believes in microdosing, but I think he just is saying that, not that he doesn't believe in it, but he doesn't have any personal experience with it. I found doing microdosing psilocybin that there was clearly an effect. There was clearly a sharpness and acuity, a flowing of thoughts that, quite frankly, meditating kind of brings about. When I'm regularly meditating, it's a similar type of acuity that is kind of on the periphery but still there. Can you talk about microdosing LSD? I've never done it. Sounds interesting. Was a big LSD fan in the earlier parts of my life. But what have you noticed with the microdosing of LSD?
Just a sharpness. Everything's a little bit brighter. Everything's a little bit clearer. Much easier to live in the moment. So, for example, I like to use the example that my girlfriend has a 3-year-old son, and his favorite game is put rocks in your pocket. And typically, that's honestly not my favorite game, to walk around and collect rocks for a couple hours and put them in my pocket. But if I'm microdosing, then all of a sudden it becomes a game that's totally fun, and I could play it for an extra 8 hours. So um, it's just I think that, like, concentration, living in the moment, not really worrying about what's on the periphery. You're just really, really focused on the tasks that are at hand, and I've really enjoyed it. I think one of the downsides I have with cannabis is I really get the munchies uh, when I smoke weed, far worse than a lot of my peer group, and I recognize that as a problem because, I don't feel good if I, smoke weed and an hour later eat 2 pints of ice cream.
Right.
But on LSD, you're not really hungry for a while. And then when you do eat, it doesn't actually kill your high. And I think that's a really big difference for me. So and obviously when you take shrooms, at least the way that I've always taken shrooms is like shroom chocolates. You have to be very careful, right? You have to eat, but then you got to have, you want to have food, but you don't want to have food in your stomach, like digesting. And then you can't eat after you take them, or you're going to throw up, right? It's like it's a little bit more of a
Well,
strategy, right?
You're definitely tapping into an aspect of LSD. I mean, I think LSD is a very subjective substance, chemical. I think I've seen people react to it so differently across the spectrum. I've seen people be in the death throes of an overwhelming experience, which I've never really had. I've had not overwhelmingly positive experiences at the time. I've certainly had what could be classified as negative, but I've never been like consumed. Whereas mushrooms, I fundamentally believe that's another form of consciousness, and it interacts with us, and it can play tricks on us, and it's not just us having a subjective experience of a thing. So yeah, I definitely can hear you about the cleanness. I myself with cannabis, like there's certain types, like a heavy indica. If I am smoking a heavy indica and trying to do my job, impossible. Like I know what the effects are. It's not going to work. I'm going to be tired, not focused. But the right sativa at the right time can spur any number of creative ideas, which if you recognize how to harness it, it's useful for me. But I think it's important what you're saying. This is always a big question to me with any type of substance use or anything, cannabis, is recognizing where your limits and where your potential deficiencies are with these things. My barometer for whether you should be doing something in life is it detrimental to you? Or is it detrimental to people around you? If either of those two things are true, you really need to reassess your relationship with it. Because especially if you're addicted or have any personality traits like that, it can be a real problem. So I think that's important what you're talking about, how you kind of know those things about yourself. That's cool that you microdose. Didn't know that. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's I'd like to do it more often, to be honest. I'm a little bit more careful now, right? Because of the gym, and I have to. I actually, my favorite thing to do is use cannabis before I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And this isn't something that I invented or anything. Like, this is something that I think Joe Rogan and Eddie Bravo and their whole crew made really famous, because they're clearly high functioning, successful people in the world, and they're using it. And the Diaz brothers in the UFC, same thing. Like, these are people that are performing at really high levels, but clearly find a huge benefit to training with cannabis. And I think that's kind of partly the future of marijuana, is like, what are they going to invent? What kind of edibles and what kind of tinctures and concoctions that are going to actually be designed to help people use cannabis for productivity, whether it be on the athletic field or whether it be at the workplace. And I'm sure there's going to be amazing breakthroughs in that over the coming decade.
I mean, we have an endocannabinoid system in our bodies. This is a crazy thing that I don't think everyone really fully groks. Like, that's weird that we have this system that basically interacts specifically with the plant out there in the world. And yeah, the potential there is amazing. It's funny you mentioned the jiu-jitsu thing because back in high school, this is like one of the only times I used to actually work out, go to the gym. This was in high school, truthfully. I exercise now. I just got a Fitbit. It's working. I like the Fitbit. But in high school, I loved smoking before going to the gym. I fucking loved it. And all of my friends were like, what is the matter with you? That's like weird. Like, who wants to be like lifting weights and running on a treadmill and doing all these stuff? Like, I don't know. I love it. I get super into it. So I find it interesting. I didn't really know that there was kind of a culture of people in the martial arts using it. That's pretty awesome.
It's also
yeah. Go ahead.
out here in San Francisco too. There's a huge pot yoga culture. I think that's developing in LA. There's schools that are like actually like they smoke. I think in the school before they do yoga. So I don't know. It's just like it's breaking down this barrier that you have to be. You're either a high functioning, high intent adult, or you're a pothead, lazy loser, stoner. Right?
Well,
It's like oh, I can do both. Actually, I could be high functioning and like to use
absolutely.
cannabis.
I mean, that's a fact to many of us who are. But I mean, you're talking about yoga and cannabis. I mean, there are sadhus, right? Wandering ascetics who smoke chillums all day long. There's a spiritual component to cannabis too that I think we have a very weird stigma over the past couple hundred years with it because of the way our government and other governments have kind of adapted to the laws that were set up. I don't think because of cannabis being so bad. I think there was like economic reasons. There's plenty of things that go into it, but to me, it's a mystical substance. I think it's the Women's Month, right? It's the international. No, it was International Women's Day, but we're in the midst of it's the Women's Month. To me, the most amazing thing about cannabis is it's a female. That's what we're smoking. We're smoking the buds. It's all the female part of the plant. And I notice people who smoke it or ingest it or have any relationship to it, the qualities it kind of interacts with people's consciousnesses are very feminine, right? Being a little more open-minded, being a little more receptive, being a little more tolerant, compassion, all of these things typically associated with feminine divinity. So I really think it's having a huge impact on the culture, are obviously coming up from the grassroots, no pun intended, but really now starting to proliferate, especially in places like California. I mean, it's very different. Like, you're in California, right? I'm in Maryland. It's still illegal here. It's decriminalized, but it's illegal. Can't grow. Even in D.C., 10 minutes away, you can have 6 plants. It's what do you think is going to happen, though? I mean, you have a cannabis accessory and product line. You obviously have some vested interest in seeing where this stuff is going to go. What are your kind of projections and thoughts on that?
To be honest, I don't put a lot of time into it because there's already 30 million people in the U.S. that admit to smoking cannabis at least semi-regularly. So, my thought is clearly that tide is rising. That number is only going to go up as legalization happens. And, people are always like, how many do you think, like, what state's next? And I'm just like, I don't really fucking care. Like, it's going to happen over
Well, that's
time.
because you live in California. I care because it's not legal in my state.
Yeah, I know. And I don't want to tell everybody on the East Coast, but you are allowed to move.
I
You,
know.
I got arrested when I was in Maryland
Me
for I was smoking. Someone was smoking a joint on my back porch in Bethesda, and the cops were called, or so they say. And I had 10 cops come to my back porch and pat me down and find a little bit of weed in my pocket, and they arrested me and they took me to jail. And I spent 6 or so hours in jail because of smoking, or not even smoking, but having
Being
marijuana
around.
in my possession on a porch in a house that I owned on my own property, not even outside, not disturbing the neighbors. And they tried to give me a year probation for that. And I mean, I just said, like, you know what, this is it. Like, this is the last straw. Like, this is absolutely insane. And, to have 10 cops rolling up, I had a cop like stare at me and be like, I think he said like, you're such a loser or something like
Yeah,
that when
they're
they were like
judging.
walking to the car in handcuffs. I'm like, this is insane. Like, this is totally insane. And yeah, I could stick around here and fight this or whatever, but you know what? I think it was time for a change anyway, and I
And the
just
weather.
decided,
And the
yeah, I
weather.
mean, I was something I was already thinking about, and I thought that was like the universe's way of telling me like,
Yeah.
it's not safe here, go away.
Cops will do that. Cops will make you definitely think the universe is trying to tell you something. Anyone who's been through any arrest or cop experience, that is a transcendental experience. Depending on, I once got arrested in New York by narcotics officers who thought I was purchasing heroin I was getting a dime bag, and they threw me in the back of a van, drove around for like 5 hours, then threw me in a local precinct, then sent me down to the Tombs, which is central bookings in Manhattan. And don't ever go there if you can, because it is a shitty fucking place. And I was just like, this is insane. This is because I wanted to buy like $20 worth of weed. This is fucking nuts. That was a huge eye opener for me. Just how, I mean, and we're white. You know what I mean? We're white. Like, can you imagine if you're a person of color and this shit? Like, it's just fucking insane to me. So I am hoping the culture and national culture changes sooner rather than later, because it's just a waste of resources and time, and it fucking sucks. All right, but I want to. Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say, we're taking away a very profitable business, right? Like, as states decriminalize and legalize this stuff, as Uber comes in. I heard that in Sacramento, the cops are actively pulling over Uber drivers because they're so pissed off that they're losing so much money from DUI revenue. So it's like all these things that are great to society are actually bad for our police forces. And the DEA and all the cops. Like, if I was president, I would make a rule that like any cop caught doing something like that is just like instant 20 years in jail. Like,
Make it
like to
severe
me,
enough
that's
to
like
match
this.
it. Yeah, yeah.
That's the scum of the scum, like pulling over a driver who's keeping people from killing themselves because you're lowering your revenue for your party next year. Like, I fucking hate those guys worse than, I mean, my blood is boiling just thinking about that, and like how easy that would be to curb that corruption and just say, look, people get laid off in jobs in the private sector all day, every day, right? And they have to go find something else in society. And we need to do the same thing with all these people, right? These DEA agents, these cops that are driving around pulling over Uber drivers. If there isn't a job for you anymore and we don't need you because we're DUIs are down 75%, goodbye. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to kind of hang on and let them torture society is just so wrong. And I think it's something that politicians really need to address.
I wonder how these institutions, they kind of like, it's like corporations who kind of get run amok at times too. They kind of turn into these nebulous, self-running autonomous things, and people like can justify anything based on the system, and that's the way it's done. Like, I read this article, I think it was in the New York Times not too long ago, where there was a black police officer, and he was like railing against quotas. He's like, these quotas are bullshit. Like, you're making a stop and frisk all these people in the city. It doesn't make sense. So when he started bringing this up, he started getting in trouble. So he started tape recording all of these conversations with the superiors. And like, there were some superiors who knew he was doing something noble. They didn't know he was recording, but they're like, no, I get it, man. This is fucked up. And it's a huge court case. It's going on now. And I wonder, how these situations and institutions kind of get so corrupt. I think with power, the ability to be corrupt obviously increases. The more authority and the more kind of you're given by society. But man, it's fucking crazy at this point. It really is. And I wonder how we collectively kind of move out of that. But truthfully, I think the answer is something you're already doing. When you can change the relationship from kids at something like Guardian Gym, so they have a place where they're not even having to interact in the same way, or not even if they are, they have a different focus or a mindset or a place they can go. That's going to do as much as anything else. I mean, education, giving kids safe spaces, starting with younger people. And then hopefully, I mean, how great would it be if people at Guardian Gym, decided to go out and serve the community because it was actually something that they could do and they had a different way of interacting. Those skills transfer over in a lot of different ways. So I hear you, man. I get just as upset about all of these things too. And anger comes with it, I think, a clarity that is very useful. But I have a temper problem. Like, I get really fucking angry sometimes, and then it becomes a detriment to a lot of the things I do. But I definitely hear you on all of that stuff. Okay, I want to talk about this. So you do a lot. You seem like a very happy guy too. Like, you have a very refreshing perspective on life. I think you're doing some cool things in the world. You have an internal facet to you that I think is pretty cool too. So what to you, how did you go about, or how are you going about creating a life that's fulfilling and kind of, allowing you to be happy?
That's a good question. I was actually just thinking while we were talking, I was like, Noah seems very happy. So I'm glad that you think of me as a happy guy too. I mean, I guess as much as I've worked in like the corporate world now at companies like Twitter, I feel like what I've done is there's a big difference between so many of the people that I see that are just like working 8 to 8 and checking emails on their, phone as they go to bed because they have to, because their boss is gonna, be pissed off if they don't, or fired. They're worried about getting fired. And I've always tried to kind of create this always on retirement type approach, right? And I'm not doing everything that I want to do all day, every day yet, but I've never had the type of jobs where I wasn't able to work out because my boss expected me to be on a plane and traveling around the country at a moment's notice, or, that I had to, get up at 6 o'clock and work till 8 o'clock at night because a project was due for the company. Like I've always had this work-life balance that I made sure the balance part came before the work part, right? And the life part came before the work part. And I think that's been a huge success. And I think also just managing like what you need to be happy, right? Like I don't have any debt. I don't use and put a lot of money on credit cards. And if I do, I pay them, immediately and everything. And I don't, I have a house that has rental units attached to it. So the rental units basically pay for the house and things like that. And, I think having that freedom and flexibility to any day that you want, just say like, I'm done working. Like I can walk away from Meister. I can walk away from Lifted View. I can walk away from Twitter at any day and like totally just go on living the same life, right? Whereas I feel like so many people that make even a lot more money than me, they have so much stuff that they've accumulated, and they have a golf course membership and a boat, and they have a house, and they have, a nice car, and like they need $20,000 a month just to pay their bills, right? And when you need $20,000 a month to pay your bills, that means you need a job that makes $500,000 because you have a wife and 2 kids and all those bills, right? And I never wanted to be in that type of situation where I felt stuck, right? Where I had to work to pay for this stuff. And I just find for me that's that like ability to have freedom. Like even if I'm at work for a day and it's not the best day at work for whatever reason, it never feels like the end of the world, and I never feel like I'm stuck here because I can always go to that thing that I really want to do. And it won't be too much longer until I transition out of work and concentrate on growing Guardian Gym from a single location to something that revolutionizes the world, hopefully in martial arts. And something that if I just don't understand, if we're successful in Oakland, why we can't take the same model of free martial arts to everywhere in the country and everywhere around the world. So I see a much bigger vision there, and like someday that will probably be my sole focus.
So I see I heard two main things in that. I heard a lot of stuff, but I heard two main things that I thought were really important. One is you seem to have a high degree of engagement, but you're not attached to the things that you're doing. So being able to walk away. So this is hugely, hugely important, because that you don't want to have the things you get own you and your circumstances own you. That's the same thing. That touches on the second concept, which to me has become very, very clear in how it's benefited my life, which is space, the concept of space, having the flexibility and time to operate, not constantly being bumped up against something, being drained on time and focus, which is, I have a question for you because I've noticed it's helped with me. I just got this thing called the Muse. It's a Muse. It's this headband that sits around your neck, your forehead, and goes behind your ears, and it monitors your brain activity when you're meditating. And I'm a notorious I don't meditate, right? I work with people in the field who tout the benefits of meditation. I've seen the direct impact on myself and others, how great it is. But for some reason, it never really connected with me. So I got this thing, and now I'm meditating every day because I need the feedback. I see it, and it works. And what I notice when I'm meditating consistently, and I've noticed this before, is internally I have a higher degree of space. And that internal space created is totally transformative. Like it really allows you to approach things in life in a different way. Do you meditate?
No.
It's very interesting. It's a very interesting process. I think I would put it like this. I got the Fitbit and the Muse thing at the same time. Meditation is like, martial arts for your brain, for your mind, for your state. It's something that was so hard for me to do, and I'm not going to be good at it forever. And I don't want to be like it's a panacea for anything, but the sense of space that I think you're tapping into and how you approach your life is something that's akin to the sense of space that can come from meditation or psychedelics or microdosing or anything. All right, I'm gonna end this because I'm gonna get you on again, and next time you're around or if I'm ever out there, we should definitely get together. But I want to leave.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be really fun. So how about this? Can you, for anyone who's listening, can you give a couple or a few practical tips that have helped you in your life kind of in your life? Practical, down to earth, regular stuff.
Man, I'm sure I could think of some better stuff with a little bit more time. But I mean, a couple of things that come to my mind are I've rarely found any happy people in life that don't have a passion. And when someone says, like, what are you looking for in a significant other, for example, I always say, like, they don't have to have or share my passion or passions, but they have to be passionate about something. And I feel like if your passion is just watching, reality TV or checking out Facebook all day and you don't have, your jujitsu or your meditation or your yoga or your, I mean, there's a million piano, making music. Like everybody should probably have or find what their passion is in life. And, I was really lucky that I found jujitsu and boxing, and that kind of became the cornerstone for my passion, something that I try to do every single day or 5 or 6 days a week at least. And I think finding your passion, especially if you can combine it maybe with like something that does both the physical and mental component for you. That's why something like yoga, I think, is so powerful. I think you have a much better chance to be a happy person and be able to block all that stuff out. And then I think the other thing is just realizing that no one has it figured out and you just have to start things. Like I've met and become friends with some of the most influential people in Silicon Valley. And, these people that are revered on Twitter, right? They're revered by TechCrunch and they're the smartest people. No, not so much.
They're people is what they are.
They're just people that have the same problems and they're figuring it out as they go through life, and they sold a company and got lucky at one point, or they got the right job at the right time. And, obviously a lot of people are super smart, way smarter than me, in many aspects of the world, but not smarter in the sense that they have it figured out, right? Like very few people have like this secret sauce to life. And, my partner, Joel, when it came to the gym, it was so special because I had this idea for a gym and I wanted to do it. But the truth is, without him taking the first step and actually like filing the 501c3 paperwork and, paying $10,000 to a designer to start working on logos and doing all that stuff, I'd probably be sitting here talking to you today about how I work with Meister and how I have an idea that we should start a nonprofit martial arts gym someday, instead of I have a great space with kids coming in that I could show you I have a gym and that it's working. And I owe him a lot of credit because he really showed me that the best ideas are ones that you actually start, and the best businesses are ones that you actually start. And it sounds so simple, but like so many kids that I talk to today are like looking for that secret sauce. Like, Ben, can you give me the 10-step process to be successful?
Right.
I really want a Tesla. Can you tell me how to get there? And it's like, you got to just start. And we all make a crazy amount of mistakes, and no one has it figured out. So I don't know. I would say live within your means, find your passion, and, stop thinking that everyone is smarter than you and has it figured out. Listen to them, but then, do what you're passionate about.
Wow, for off the cuff, you did a fucking good job. So congratulations. Hey, man, thank you so much for doing this. I'm really glad we got a chance to connect here.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking with you. You have a great energy, and I hope we can link up next time I'm back on the East Coast. And you're always welcome to stay out here with me if you need a place when you come out to the Bay Area.
Appreciate it, man. Cool.
Yeah.
After the music, people, thank you again for listening past the music and or being lazy and not turning it off. Or you could listen past the music and be lazy too, right? They're not mutually exclusive. But thank you for real. A reminder, if you want that book I mentioned in the intro, Tribal Leadership by Dave Logan, John King, and Haley Fisher Wright. And I don't have this is just because I like the book. Then I don't get nothing for this. But if you want that book, remember, sync.podcast.com. That's SYNC podcast.com. It's like NSYNC, the band, but no N or that asterisk, just the sync. If you want that, just go there on the right, on the posts. There's little things that says, hey, join the Synchronicity. That's not a thing. If you join the Synchronicity community, it'll be very clear about what that is and what you're signing up for. That automatically enters you in the drawing to get that book. And then what happens is when you win, I reach out to you and I say, hey, you won. But if you go to syncpodcast.com and you enter your email to join the Synchronicity community, you're automatically entered to win. And that's it. It's that simple. So thank you, as always, or for the first time. If this is your first time listening, thank you. And let me point out that this contest for this tribal leadership giveaway is March 23rd. The contest will be over March 28th, and I'm going to announce the winner March 29th. And if this is way in the future, this is the year 2016. Welcome, future people. But that's it. Thank you for listening. As always, rate and review on iTunes and Stitcher or anywhere else. And I will see you next week.